financially and spiritually assist families in need. If you would like to volunteer or become a monthly sponsor, please visit us at www.themilafoundation.org. Again, that's www.themilafoundation.org, because every life matters.
Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Weekly Business Hour. And first of all, thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Rick Schissler. I'm your host. I'm also a Silver Fox advisor and the founder of OneBestConsult.com. Well, if you're in business, you do business, you want to learn about business, you're in the right place, because the Weekly Business Hour is dedicating to connecting businesses of all shapes and sizes throughout the country and even throughout the world. We have some listeners, some loyal listeners who follow us on the internet. And don't forget that there is an app available out there for Lone Star Community Radio. I encourage you, download it, get it on your phone, and then you can listen to the program if you're traveling or out and about in your car. Just go to the app on Monday mornings, 11 a.m. Central Time, and you can listen to us. That's Lone Star Community Radio, which is where we're broadcasting from today. Lone Star Community Radio is located in downtown Conroe, Texas, and that has a lot of significance. One is the studios are located on the first floor of City Hall, so we're real connected to the community here in Conroe, Montgomery County. Two, the fact is that Conroe, again, made another list that indicates it's one of the fastest growing communities, cities in the entire country. So there's lots of positive happening here, lots of great business going on. So we're in the middle of it. So we try to convey some of the things we see and that we feel might help you, recognizing that not all parts of the country, all parts of the state even, are having the wonderful business environment that we're having here in Conroe. But it's a great place to be, and I'm happy to be here. Quick thought for the day, holiday hours, right? Holidays are on us. Thanksgiving is roaring down the track, and it'll be on us in a few days, and then followed up very quickly, quicker than you expect, right, will be the Christmas and New Year's holidays. And it's always a time for businesses to close their doors for a period of time, maybe a day or two. Some businesses close for a week. I'll never forget, I was part of a group that bought a business, and for 70-some years, that business had closed the entire week between Christmas and New Year's. And I'd never experienced that because I grew up in a retail service business, and we were open all the time, it seemed like, not on Christmas Day or New Year's Day, but it was interesting, and people took their vacations. They saved their time, and it was part of their culture. And it worked out for the company in a sense that they didn't have people off on vacation throughout the year. So it was a win-win situation. But I did insist that somebody answer the phone that week. I think they didn't do that. You needed to be aware that the phone was going to ring from time to time, and you need to answer, let people know, right, that you're still alive and kicking out there. Think about your holiday hours. Think about the impact on your customers, right? Access to your business. They need to buy your products, services. They need help. Obviously, they're most important to us, but also on our vendors, our suppliers. It's been a horrible 2 years for a lot of businesses as far as supply chain issues, not able to get supplies you need for your service. It's amazing, and I don't think it's time to sit back and just kind of, well, we're going to close the door, it's not going to be available. Vendors got product they want to deliver on Christmas Eve. Maybe I need to just open up and accept that product because I'm going to need it. But consider that, and of course, last but not least, your employees. That's really the heart of the holidays for me. I think it's great that we consider our customers, as we should all 365 days of the year, but your employees, giving them time off to be with families, friends, kind of unwind, because a lot of businesses, sales drop during the holidays. Some business, if they're seasonal, absolutely. I have a client that they do like 50, almost 60% of their business in the month of December. But they're in a business that lends itself to the holidays and holiday buying, a consumer business. But many, many businesses, particularly business-to-business businesses, do not do that much business. It falls off the month of December particularly. So consider, you may want to give your employees a little extra time off and a chance to really enjoy the time of the season. Well, the weekly business hour, as I alluded to earlier, is where Montgomery County and businesses throughout the world come to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve their business, and to be part of conversations that can make a real difference in your business. And that's why we're so glad you're here, and hopefully you will join us and become part of the weekly business hour. Also appreciate it if you get a chance, tell your friends. You've got friends in the business world, tell them about the show and encourage them to listen. I want to remind you, as I do try to do every show, is if you like to watch, sometimes people today listening gets kind of boring and they want to see. We're live on video as well. Just go to YouTube or Facebook, push in the weekly business hour, type it in, and it'll take you to the page, and you click on it, and you can watch as well as listen. And also, the most important thing, and I'll repeat this throughout the show, the most important thing for me is the fact that you do feel there's open communication. So send me an email if you've got a question about something we discussed on the show, you've got a question about or a comment about how we do things on the show. We'd love to get that. And most importantly, if you have a business challenge and you want some feedback, I do that. I do it every day. I respond to people. In fact, we actually have people on the show, our mailbag segment from time to time, or questions that have been sent in, people looking for an answer or a point of view, some advice, if you will. So drop me a line. It's real simple. It's Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. Again, that's Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. We respond to everybody. So please send us your emails. Well, now let's crank up and get to the reason that we're really here, and that's to talk about business. And I think we have a great guest here to kind of kick things off. The subject matter can be a little dry, but it's critical, and it's kind of in a critical stage right now in its development, as my mom would say. In the course of my development, it's critical. But we have Chris Wehe back. Chris hasn't been with us for a while, but he's with Ellard Insurance. Ellard Insurance and Risk Management is a Montgomery County-based commercial insurance firm. And today, Chris and I are going to have, and I can say this firsthand now, right, a very, very important conversation, why commercial insurance premiums are continuing to rise. And I can tack something on from personal experience right now. To find commercial insurance in certain cases, certain types of insurance, has become a real challenge. Chris, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Rick. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here because you always have all the answers. So
I try.
We're going to show people. If you would, let's start off. Give our audience a little bit of your background in the business world so they understand where you're coming from.
Sure. I'd be happy to. So I've been with Ellard Insurance for about 8 years now. We are a kind of boutique, small insurance agency, and all we focus on is commercial insurance. So we have the experience and access to carriers that other agencies might not have. We really don't do too much auto or home insurance.
Okay, so your background is commercial. One of the things I've always enjoyed is you understand the technical side, and I don't mean that in a sense of IT or whatever, but what a policy covers, doesn't cover, what kind of insurance I would have, willing to make suggestions on coverage amounts, things like that. Where did you get all that education?
Honestly, most of it was on-the-job training and doing extra research on different types of risk and policies. There are certifications and that sort of thing, but I've just mainly learned in 8 years on the job looking at all sorts of risks, and that you learn when you're trying to place difficult risk. You learn a lot about insurance just by doing that.
It's interesting. If folks, if you've listened to my show for some time, you'll know that I'm big on having advisors. And on my list of advisors with the lawyer and the accountant and all is an insurance agent, meaning they will look at your business and advise you. They're not just there to sell you insurance. They're there to advise you And I don't know how many of them are out there. I don't think there are a lot of them that really are qualified or capable to advise you. Chris is one of those people, though, in my opinion. He can give you solid advice about the coverages and what you need and what you should. Because it's funny, Chris, to me, every day I'm amazed that a certain kind of business needs a special kind of insurance. I bump into these cases and it never struck me, and it's a very specialized piece of insurance. I always knew about restaurants and bars, and that's a pretty big category, but there are a lot of specialty insurances out there.
That's correct. It really depends on what you're doing, what kind of business you are, how you're set up, what's your market, and being able to kind of work with a risk management. We work from a risk management point of view. Insurance is just a way to offset risk, but there's other ways to help a business offset risk that doesn't even necessarily cost any money. A lot of it's just common sense.
You make a great point there and kind of lead into this discussion about insurance premiums and insurance availability, commercial availability, is that really insurance is a lot of business people, small business owners particularly, they look at insurance as just something I got to buy. I got to pay X dollars a month, and it really, the insurance is just a piece of the risk management puzzle. It's interesting to me that people don't see that it's about risk management. You are in a business, you own a truck, the truck goes out on public streets, and you've got a risk that there'll be an accident or something will happen. And so you don't have to necessarily have the insurance in the case of the truck. You have to, state requires it, but you've got that risk whether you have insurance or not. And the question is, do you want to risk a $100,000 claim or whatever and not have somebody to pay for it? And I mean, that's, a lot of folks don't understand that.
Yes, a lot of them don't have the insurance business because they just look at it as an expense versus a way to manage your risk. Most small businesses are one claim away from going out of business. Even if, and unfortunately in our litigious society, you can get sued, anybody can sue anybody. And having insurance to help pay for that is obviously it's a way to manage or mitigate your risk, but it's also, and you were mentioning it this morning, that it's also a peace of mind issue. Versus if you don't have the insurance, you got to worry about attorneys. You got to worry how much the claim's going to be, even if it's a small amount. Usually the legal fees are 3 times the amount of the claim amount. And having insurance, and on most liability policies, the carrier has a duty to defend you or your company, and they'll cover all the legal fees. And so, and you also don't have to worry about it. You file the claim, talk to the adjuster, and then most of the time the business owner's done with it. Insurance company will pick it up from there and they'll deal with it and settle it without any too much involvement from the business owner.
You make a great point. I used to tell people that exact thing. It's about the legal fees. I mean, you're buying at least, and people would argue with me when I was mentoring or advising small business, and they just pay claims. They write a check for $5. I said, it's the legal fees. Focus on that. I said, the legal fees, at least you've got those covered, and they can really add up really fast.
Yes, most of the time, 3 to 4 times the amount of the settlement. And yes, you mentioned that people, they're just going to settle. I look at it as an advantage. They're taking the emotions out of it. And I deal with small businesses all the time, and I didn't do anything wrong. This is not right. And I go, I understand. But at the end of the day, this is a financial decision. And if, I joke, the insurance company can make the problem go away for less money than it would cause to fight it, they're going to write a check. Unfortunately, that's just the way our system, our legal system is get sued for just about anything. You don't have to do anything wrong to get sued. And I tell stories all day. They didn't do anything wrong, but they ended up having 6 figures in legal fees just to defend themselves. So
right.
It's a good
just
reason
to
for
protect
insurance.
themselves and their assets, their business. Very interesting. Well, believe it or not, we're to the point where we need to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we're going to jump, ladies and gentlemen, with both feet into the subject about increased premiums and what it looks like, what the causes are, and what we can do about it as business owners. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back with you.
A Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question or comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station at irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
Vehe Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit, began in 2014 with a mission to strengthen the future of veterans through leadership and entrepreneurship training. We've invested over 1,400 hours of training in our veterans while connecting them with community entrepreneurs and leaders. Our mission is to continue investing in our veterans who have given so much for our country. Please join us in our mission by visiting VeheInstitute.org. That's VELinstitute.org.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and we're having a conversation today with Chris Wehe of the Ellard Insurance Company. They're a risk management insurance company located here in Montgomery County that focus on commercial insurance. So we're talking about your business now, about the insurance coverage, the risk management for your business. So the main subject today of the conversation was talk about why the premiums, commercial premiums as well as homeowners premiums. My wife and I just got about a 30% increase. And we've not filed a claim. You just sit there and say, well, I'm getting the same coverage. What is this all of a sudden? So the markets are chaotic. And many of you might know that if you've done renewals, but I also recognize that, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, a vast majority of renewals take place end of the year or first of the new year for businesses.
A lot do, but we try to keep them spread out throughout the year. We don't want, you mentioned people taking time off around the holidays. It's hard to find an underwriter the week of Christmas to New Year's. Most of them are taking their vacation. And so getting policies taken care of during that week is not the easiest thing in the world to do. No. So we try to spread them out throughout the year.
Yeah, I've been there and done it. In fact, in our family business way back when, one of the things that was done is we did our renewals halfway through the year. And we got better rates in some cases, so the agents claimed by doing it then. Yeah. Because there wasn't so much pressure. So, no, that's an interesting thought for anybody that has insurance, commercial insurance particularly, is see if you can do your renewal in the middle of the year or some other time other than January 1st, December 31st.
Yeah, most of the time it's getting started on the renewal enough ahead of time, not waiting until the week before it's
What do you recommend, 60 days?
60 days at least, yeah. It allows,
especially in today's market.
Yeah, a lot more remarketing, trying to find something less expensive or managing increases is kind of the name of the game this year with insurance, and having more time to be able to shop it around can help with the premiums.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Well, let's talk about the premiums. I mean, insurance premiums, as I mentioned, even on homeowners, have gone up 20-30% to me is just nuts. Excuse the language, ladies and gentlemen, but it really is. It makes no sense. That's how I use the word nuts. It just doesn't make sense. But there are a lot of reasons behind that, Chris, and why don't you walk us through some of them so at least we know where the market is and why this is happening to us. Sure. And then we'll talk about maybe some things that we could do, some steps we could take to mitigate some of this.
Well, I've heard a lot worse than nuts in this last year. So it has been a challenging year. And I'm mainly talking about commercial property premiums, but a lot of it applies to homeowners policies, even though I don't do a lot of that. The reasons for the increases are the same in a lot of respects. So a lot of it has to do with, there's about 4 or 5 factors that are playing into it. There is cost of materials. You mentioned before that we had huge bottlenecks. Prices of all building goods are going up, labor's going up, inflation, all are contributing to increase in the values of properties. And that kind of leads into the second one, is the replacement values. And if you look at your property policy, chances are the replacement value went up. And that's because of inflation, cost of goods sold. Carriers have replacement value calculators that they put your property information in, how old, square foot, square footage and that sort of thing, and they come up with a replacement value. And that's where we find a lot of our clients, well, it's not worth that much. And it's not, because that's worth is a market value, not a replacement value. So replacement value is the cost to repair or replace a building at today's dollars, not what you paid for it, not what's on the tax roll. It is a replacement value, and those are going up 30, 40, 50% because of inflation. And like I mentioned before, cost of goods sold is or cost of materials, labor market is extremely tight. You talk to any contractor, if you've worked with any contractor recently, your chances are you're waiting. You're waiting for materials, you're waiting for them to find people to do the work. And so all that puts a tremendous pressure on replacement value. And most insurance policies are replacement value. You don't want, that is in your policy language, and all lenders require replacement value. Whether it's a home mortgage or a commercial property, a lender's going to want replacement value. And so we're kind of hemmed in a lot of times on how we, with the replacement value, there's not a lot we can do about it right now until replacement values go down, which probably won't happen anytime soon. Also, carriers, and you may have seen the news, carriers are pulling out on the residential and the commercial side. They're losing money, and they decide we're just not going to write in Texas anymore. And you see that in other states. California's got a huge problem right now with that, as does Texas. There's carriers pulling out. We are in a high-risk area. Texas is a high-risk area. I mean, think about it. Hurricanes, tropical storms, flooding, tornadoes, hailstorms, freezes. I mean, the last 2 years we've had 3 hard freezes. Who would have thought that 5 years ago, for whatever reason? And so that is, carriers are losing money, so they're just not writing. And if you have fewer carriers, the law of supply and demand, lower supply, demand's still there, so it allows carriers that are still in the market to charge higher premiums to make money. And so that is another factor that is increasing insurance premiums. And then one of the reasons a lot of people don't know about is insurance companies have insurance. They get insurance on their policies. It's called reinsurance. And what it does, it helps carriers with catastrophic events, where they would have a huge amount outflowing on premium or paying out on policies because of a hurricane or any number of events. And so they tap in to their insurance. So they're kind of in the same boat we are in some respects. Their reinsurance companies are putting a tremendous amount of pressure on them on the type of policies they write, the type of properties they write, and also charging the insurance companies more. They have to pay higher premiums. Insurance companies, ironically, have to pay higher premiums on their insurance, just like the consumer does or a business owners. They're also being a lot more detailed and fussy, I guess, for lack of a better word, on what they're allowing their carriers to write. They're looking at policies a lot harder than they used to be. Inspections are a lot harder than they used to be.
So really what we're talking about, and so far what you've covered, is the fact that somebody ran the calculator, if you will, and figured out they were losing money. And ladies and gentlemen, we're talking in the billions. I mean, this is not small potatoes when you look at the whole market, say for the state of Texas or even for Montgomery County where we are, of the value of the insurance on commercial businesses. So when they have a catastrophic event, and that's often published in the newspaper, a hurricane comes through and they'll say it's $100 million in losses or this or that. They do calculate. One of the things, Chris, I have read several different times over the last several years is one thing the insurance companies have done is they've really updated their models so that they can evaluate their risk. And the models they're using are a lot more accurate, if you will. So that has driven up some of the cost, because this deal about losing money is not a new phenomenon. I mean, it didn't happen last year and all of a sudden it switched. It's been kind of a bleed out for them. Is that, I mean, they've sharpened their tools that they use to evaluate a risk.
Yes.
Whether it's a whole state or whether it's a business or a type of industry, whatever. Mm-hmm. They're looking at it under a microscope much more magnification than they did in the past.
Yeah, their analytics are obviously getting better, especially for new types of risk. Cyber liability is a big one where they're getting better at looking at risk and assigning a premium to it. And yeah, the reinsurers have lost money 4 out of the last 5 years, and so they're putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the carriers to write higher premium, better risk, so it makes it a little more difficult to get coverage and to get it at a reasonable price.
Basically, we've kind of switched gears. Used that old expression: a banker didn't want to loan you money unless you didn't need it. Well, I see the pendulum swing on insurance. They want the better risk, the ones that have less risk of loss, and they keep pushing it far enough, then the pool of people that can't get insurance or have to pay exorbitant amounts of premium gets larger.
Yes.
So the insurance companies and the banks are in bed together. I get it, right?
I wouldn't say that, but in fact, some banks are shedding their insurance subsidiaries.
Yeah.
I know, like Truist, and there's a couple others that are getting out of the insurance business.
Yeah.
They're getting beat up enough on interest rates. They don't want to get beat up on insurance premiums either.
It's a tough business right now, being in a bank and
Yeah.
you own those kind of subsidiaries. What are some other reasons that you see out there that are causing this disruption in the market?
Well, especially in Texas and really along the entire Gulf Coast, or I shouldn't even say that, California's had some claims issues, is the frequency and the number of claims. Claims have not gone down. I know people focus on, well, we haven't had a hurricane. Most claims do not come from hurricanes. Most from, obviously, everyday stuff that can happen. You talk about fire a lot, but we've had, this year alone, we've had one hard freeze in late December. That was a significant claim event for water damage claims. We've had tornadoes in Pasadena. We had those storms go through the woodlands earlier in late spring, early summer that knocked out power to a huge chunk. Well, the power went out because trees are falling on power lines and on buildings, and so those all create claim events. And the frequency of claims have not gone down in Texas, even though we haven't had a hurricane. Hopefully we won't for foreseeable future, but it's not just hurricanes. And I get that a lot. Well, we haven't had a hurricane, and we don't have a catastrophic claim event, but everyday claims for weather, hail, all that comes into play when they're looking at the claims they're paying out. So really, we're still not in a claims-friendly environment, I guess. Claims are still there, and they haven't really gone down.
Well, often in my mind, as I think about insurance, it's the exposed areas, right? So you say, we haven't had a strong storm, Gulf storm or hurricane, tropical storm, whatever, in some time now. But we can remember back to events like Harvey. That wasn't that long ago, and the destruction it brought along. But it's all those small things that are happening. I say small, they're not small. That freeze was not small.
No.
But the areas that concern me, if I was in business, and this gets down to selecting a location of a business, particularly if you're in manufacturing, lots of things go into making a decision where to put your building, where to locate, and so on and so forth. But one of the things is, say, in Texas, is the coastal area, which it comes inshore of 25, 50 miles. I don't know how far. But in those areas, insurance, my way of looking at it, has been subsidized, not directly, but flood insurance. I used to own property down in Galveston. Families own property, and flood insurance was relatively cheap for the exposure. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I don't do the analytics, but it was pretty amazing to me. And of course, you had the windstorm, so overall it's more expensive than being where we are up here in Conroe. But still, and this is changing now. There's less of an effort, even on the government side. Of course, that'll have to work through the legislative system because they want to charge what it should be, and that's going to have a direct impact on businesses. The cost of doing business. If all of a sudden I'm located near a coastal area, for an example, or a river that floods or whatever, I suspect your insurance is going to go up nicely. Your premiums have got to be climbing.
Yeah, flood's a good example. Flood insurance premiums have been low, extremely low, and subsidized. You're right, but the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Programs, runs out of money every time there's a flood event because there's not enough premiums being paid because they're not matching the risk. And I know a lot of people this year and last year are starting to see increases in their flood insurance because they're using better analytics and so putting an appropriate premium with the risk. And so being able to, and that really affected flood insurance. In fact, Harvey was a flood event. It wasn't a property. We had very few property claims because it was a flood event. And if you didn't have flood insurance, you didn't have coverage. But our NFIP and FEMA, they are getting a lot better at associating a premium with a risk. And we're going to pay for it one way or the other. If Congress has to keep bailing out NFIP, well, we're paying that as taxpayers versus insurance premiums. So it's pushing more of the risk back on to the policyholder, and in the case of flood, off government. They want NFIP to be able to stand on its own most of the time, just like with TWIA here in Texas. It's subsidized by the government, by the state, to make sure everybody has wind coverage. And so you are able to get wind coverage and flood coverage because of government programs. And they are subsidized. Even with being better at adjusting the premium and risk with flood, you're still probably underpaying for it. Because
that seems to be shifting. That's and the windstorms, another one. That premium has gone up steady, but I agree. Even though it's gone up steadily, it's still not probably where it should be from a market point of view.
Yeah, if it was completely free market, premiums would be a lot higher. But there's always a trade-off. If any government subsidized or backed insurance program runs into a huge event, then they can tap in. Congress can increase the funding or whatever, but that has to go through that process. Every time there's a threat of a government shutdown, you can't write flood insurance because it's written through the NFIP, and they're not working, so they can't write flood policies, which means you can't close a loan if your lender requires flood insurance. And so it kind of has a trickle down effect. People don't realize when the government shuts down how we're dependent on different government services for whatever. And so it's I had to go out. The first time they threatened to shut down, I was calling a lot of my clients. Hey, if you need flood insurance for a loan, you might want to get it now and not wait until after or later. And if there's a shutdown, we couldn't get it, which could push a closing off.
Yeah, and people need that loan. You made me think. I have a client, an active client, who rents space in an office building that's located adjacent to one of the many bios in Houston. And I guess it was Harvey or the bio came out of its banks, and his lease space, he's on the first floor, got 3 or 4 inches of water or whatever. And turned out that building is in the floodway, not just the floodplain. Wow. So his insurance premiums now, just for his property, because he's a tenant, they're up to between 5 and 10% of the total amount of insurance. But there's no way he can not have that insurance because he spent every dollar last time. He spent the limit, right?
Yes.
Replacing desks and chairs and things that got water damage, and some computers and stuff, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, people don't realize, or businesses don't realize, you can get flood insurance on contents. You don't have to own the building.
Right.
But most businesses have invested quite a bit of money on equipment, furniture, electronics, inventory, and that sort of thing. And that you should, especially if you're close to a flood zone, you can get flood insurance on contents.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The landlord apparently understands because they have not raised the rent in 10 years. Because they just can't lease that space if someone does find out the building, to the middle of the streets where the floodway ends. And again, it's not feet, it's inches, but just a few inches, right, can make all the difference in the world. It's funny. The other day I was looking at a piece of property, and reading the little blurb on it about this and that and how the access and everything, but it mentioned that the property's either in the 100-year or 500-year floodplain, depending on what part of the property was acreage. And I said, now who in the hell's going to buy that? I mean, and they were wanting a pretty penny for it, okay? What's it worth?
Yeah.
Not a whole lot, in my opinion.
Usually, if in a situation like that, if you're going to put a building on it, you're going to take that into account and elevate the building.
Sure.
And elevation certificates, even if you're not in a flood zone, an elevation certificate can help you reduce your flood premium.
Right.
Because if you are 6 inches above everybody else, well, you're the last house in that subdivision that's going to flood. And they take that into account now, and you would probably get a lower premium than the people around you just by having an elevation certificate. So I usually recommend doing that even if you're not in a flood zone, because a lot of times it can make a difference. And then lenders, obviously, if it's in the flood zone, you got to have it.
Well, still the disruption if you have a flood. You can't get to your house for a week or 2 weeks, which happened to a member of our family.
Yes. Yes.
Their home didn't flood, but they couldn't get to it for over a week.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
and that can affect a business if the power went out and they can't get to it and all their stuff goes bad if it's a restaurant or something like that. So you can get coverage for all that stuff.
Yeah. Or just don't locate in the floodplain, which will impact the coastal areas in a big way.
Well, and they're increasing. One of the things that they're doing is they're increasing the flood zones. They're getting bigger. They're not getting smaller. As we all know, if you've been in Houston any length of time, it's not so much a matter of if, but when. And with all the building, it's not your area. It's what's happening up creek or up bayou. And if they're building there, that water's going somewhere. And if it's real bad, retention ponds are not going to stop it. I mean, it'll slow it down. But once it starts, then, it's kind of what's happening up a river, so to speak, that's going to affect you and not necessarily what's happening in your area.
So lots and lots of different points of pressure on commercial insurance and also consumer insurance, homeowners insurance. But these pressure points are there. I think I shared with you that I was talking to an insurance broker, and Lloyd's has actually shut the window, so to speak, on different types of reinsurance to different industries, different risk, because and it's typically a worldwide situation then. So here we are. We need insurance on our property, on our building, and we can't get it. What do you as an agent tell me? What ideas do you have of what can be done to possibly find insurance for me?
A lot of times it's not a function of not getting it. It's just the premium. There's ways to offset premium, especially on property. It's shifting more risk onto the policyholder, but it can reduce premiums, increasing deductibles. A lot of people don't look at increasing their deductibles. They're set at $1,000 or whatever, just because it's always been like that. But if you increase your deductibles to $5,000, $10,000 on commercial properties, you can go up to $25,000 on what they call AOP or all other perils, and then having a higher wind and hail deductible. A lot of my commercial property owners are going to a 10% wind and hail, which is steep. It's a lot on a $2 million building. That's a $200,000 deductible,
Wow.
But it can reduce the premium significantly, 10, 20%. If you're willing to accept that risk, then you can lower your premiums. And most of the time it is investment properties. They've got to meet, they got expenses and revenue, and the revenue's got to be higher than expenses. So they're looking more at reducing the premium than the risk. They'll deal with the risk if it happens. But increasing deductibles, having information on the last time the roof was replaced is a huge, huge driver of claims on homeowners and commercial properties. Old roofs leak; they're more likely to have damage if there's an event, and so they are having, keeping your roof up to date, keeping your AC, doing that, doing inspections. We can come out and do an inspection with you. We do risk management surveys for a lot of our commercial property owners. So will the carriers. Carriers will do inspections. Interesting thing about insurance is we will write the policy without ever physically going to that. We'll write it first, and then it's subject to inspection. Versus like on a loan, they're going to go out and inspect it before the bank lends money on it. But we'll write the policy with, we'll Google it and look up information on the building, but we won't physically look at the building until after the policy is written, which can sometimes create some issues if there's things there we don't know about.
Right.
But keeping your everything updated, having a good maintenance program, looking for any kind of thing that a business does that can be documented can go a long way to helping minimize premium increases. Unfortunately, we're kind of like in the health insurance market. We always talk about minimizing the increase. Health insurance goes up every year, and it's just a way you just change it or do stuff to try to minimize that premium increase. Well, we're kind of that way with commercial insurance now. It's just not a function of your premium is going down. It's trying to manage the increase, whether moving it to another carrier or looking at deductibles, looking at reducing coverage. If we can prove a replacement value is lower than what the carrier thinks it is, a lot of times we can get them to adjust the premium down, because property premiums are replacement value times the rate pretty much. And so higher the replacement value, the higher the premium. So that's a lot things we can do to try to minimize the risk to the business owner and to the insurance company.
What about the case where you've got a client and the markets, for whatever reasons, just don't want to write that insurance on that property? What do you do to try to find, or what can you do, if anything?
There's a few carriers, we call it carriers of last resort, that will do it. They usually want a couple pints of blood, and it's a longer process to get coverage for businesses that are, I don't want to say uninsurable, but are difficult to insure. If you have a lot of claims, obviously it makes it more difficult to place a risk. Like I said, there's carriers that do that. The premiums are accordingly high, but you can get coverage. You can, and they do require a lot more information than your regular carrier does. So there's some options to get it. I usually tell people, because people ask me all the time, can you write this? I can write just about anything, but are you willing to pay that premium to cover that risk? So that's it's not so much a function of can't do it at all, but can I get it where you can afford it? Where the premiums are affordable, and a lot of times they would we just have to get something for a year, go a year without claims, but start to develop a track record. And having continuous coverage is a big deal for insurance companies. Going without, getting some, then dropping it again. They want to see a track record, obviously a track record of few or no claims. And when it does help get coverage, and on the premiums a lot, if you have prior coverage and can prove it and have no claims or low claims.
Right.
Another way is to, talk to if you think you have a claim, talk to your insurance agent about it before you file the claim, because sometimes it might be better in the long run for you not to file that claim. Insurance is really meant for stuff that'll put a business out of business or severely impact their cash flow. If you got to deal with this claim or make payroll, well, that is the reason to file an insurance claim. A lot of times, if it's a smaller issue, we would never tell somebody not to file the claim, but we would say, hey, if you do this, after you do deductibles, you're not going to be out as much money as you think you are. Plus, you're going to have a claim on there's going to be a claim on that policy. And it's not so much having one small claim a year. It's what happens 6 months down the road. Something really bad happens. Now you've got multiple claims. You're going to get non-renewed, and then we're going out just trying to find any kind of coverage.
Right.
And then a lot of times working with your insurance agent can help. Nobody wants to, be able to, I didn't do anything wrong. And I've had business owners getting really mad because I didn't do anything wrong, but they're suing me. And you got to, first of all, calm them down and say, hey, this stuff happens all the time. And, we need to look at it from a financial point of view. And, I've always had the philosophy, you can buy your way out of a problem. You really don't have a problem. And, filing small claims. And we've had people do that, file small claims over and over again, and we can't get them insured because, they just have they have a claim history. And I said, if I was your agent, I'd have told you not to file these claims.
Right.
Just, work on getting a better safety program, better driver program. And there's ways to do that. Carriers don't want the claim any more than the policyholder does. And a lot of insurance carriers have programs for free that can help mitigate, reduce claims.
Right.
Driver programs, inspections, risk. There's a lot of risk management tools out there as a policyholder that you would have that unfortunately most business owners don't take advantage of.
Well, and you're making the point to our listeners. Absolutely, it's about risk management, and that we started off talking about that in one other aspect, and now we switched is managing the risk in your business and managing it as it relates to your insurance availability, premium. It all adds up, and I was fortunate growing up in a family business. One of the things we did. Because we had a large area, multiple stores, exposure, and risk management was part of what we did each and every day.
And especially manufacturing, where your claim possibility of a claim is significantly higher, obviously, in manufacturing versus a retail. Restaurants are slip and fall type of claims all the time, and so being able to prove to the carrier that you have a safety program, you have a driver program. You have safety meetings. A lot of carriers require that now. They want to see a safety manual. And when do you have risk management meetings with your staff and training them on how to do things properly? It's very prevalent in the child care industry. You have to have the carrier wants to see manuals and how you train them, and that you are doing background checks and stuff like that, and that can help offset premiums and obviously offset the claims, which nobody wants.
Yeah, especially in child care, I can't imagine. Well, Chris, I can't thank you enough for coming out. It's been a while. I'm glad you came back to see us. It's difficult times for folks to buy insurance for their businesses, and as we said, even in your homeowners, but it's becoming a challenge, and I, like you, don't see any end to the tunnel. I don't see any light yet at the end of the tunnel that it's going to change dramatically. So
yeah, all we're hoping for is the increases go down. They're not double digits.
Single digit. That's something to work for,
yes.
I guess. If folks want to get in touch with you and ask further about what we talked about today, or talk to you about insurance, what's the best way to do that?
So you can call me at 281-827-0990 or email me at chris@Ellard, ELLARD, insurance.com.
Again, thank you, Chris. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break, and I want to remind you that a podcast video cast of today's program will be available on Wednesday of this week. So if we've talked about something you've missed or you want to share, which I always appreciate sharing with other people, hopefully they become part of our show, our listeners, keep your eyes open. You can go to the website here at the radio station. That's irlonestar.com. Click on the tab of shows, morning show, and you'll find the weekly business hour. Copies will be on Facebook, YouTube, all across social media, and also on bestconsult.com. So we're going to take this break, and we come back. Second half of the show, I'm going to continue a conversation I had last week that we didn't have much time for, and that's about, is your business keeping up? I've got a point that somebody raised, and I want to kind of get through that. So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio. Broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Every Friday, tune into Texas Ticket on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 FM with Armando Nino of Gull Lake Conroe, focusing on Montgomery County area events and places. Get a feel of the Texas spirit at the event, paired with guest and vendor interviews, event coverage, and ticket giveaways, and so much more. Join us Fridays and punch your Texas ticket. For more information on the show, visit irlonestar.com/Texas Ticket.
Want to check out the fastest growing sport in the world? It's right here in Conroe, Texas, and it's roller derby. Conroe Roller Derby is a non-profit recreational league of women and men who want you to come and check out the fast-paced, hard-hitting game of roller derby. The Conroe Cutthroats practice at Rainbow Roller Rink on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. You can find our game schedule and more information on our website, www.conroerollerderby.com.
Path to the Plate is a research-based education program that helps consumers understand how their food choices impact their health by making the connection to agriculture. Learning about how food is grown and produced, and how consumers can make better food choices for themselves and their families, Path to the Plate is all about dispelling myths and misconceptions. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area,
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here winding up our show today, and again, I thank you for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed it. Got a minute or two left here, and I wanted to go back to a segment I had on my last show called Is Your Business Keeping Up? We kind of ran out of time that day, as we have today, but there's some points here, and there's a particular point, and I was in a conversation about it. Creating stability in the age of uncertainty. Is your business doing that? That's the question. Okay, we have 4 or 5 other things, but that one kind of stands out, at least it did to the individual who approached me and talked to me about it. Creating stability in the age of uncertainty. What that means is your business will stand out as compared to other businesses, hopefully in your industry, your competitors, that you are a stable business. And what does that mean? Obviously, people want to do business in general with companies that are going to be there tomorrow. And there are a number of ways you can convey or create that image, and I will go through those at a later time, but I think that's one of the most important things that we can do in our businesses. And it's not something you put on a checklist and just check it off. It's something you really work on every day, that the perception of your business, whether I'm outside looking at the building or I'm receiving your product or your people are on site doing service, whatever it might be, I want to feel like you're a stable business because I want to do business with people who are stable. There are other issues, pricing, quality of product and all that, but quality of product, that relates to stability. Even pricing does. So we'll get into that in a little more detail. But in the meantime, as we go into the holiday period, and I know people get busy, it's something just to think about. If you've got a couple of minutes, either on the commute to work or something, think about how you can make your business appear to be more stable. And there's some concrete things that need to be done, like cash flow. That tells people you're stable, paying your bills on time. But it's not just 1 or 2 things. It's the whole, if you will, culture, with parentheses around it, what your business is all about, what it conveys. It's so important, and it can help you bring in more dollars and make more money on the bottom line. There's no doubt in my mind about it. So we'll talk about that at a later time. In the meantime, I want to thank Chris Wehe for joining us. The guy understands commercial insurance. He's a great guy to do business with. I encourage you to reach out to Chris if you have questions about your commercial insurance, and put a note on your calendar to please join us next week at 11 o'clock for another edition of the Weekly Business Hour. And until that time, until next week, please stay engaged. I know we're on top of a holiday, Thanksgiving, but keep your focus on what counts in your business. Thanks.